brought to you by wonderful Florida oranges and grapefruit. Fresh frozen concentrate, canned full strength, and chilled orange juice. All with the natural vitamin C you need every day. And now, let's all play What's My Line?
And now let's meet our award-winning What's My Line panel. First, the popular columnist whose voice of Broadway appears in papers from coast to coast, Miss Dorothy Kilgallen.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Our guest panelist tonight is one we're very proud to have. He's a brilliant actor who will be seen very soon in a new picture made in Europe, Tempest, Mr. Van Heflin.
To borrow a phrase that's quite popular along Broadway these days, it's once more with feeling that I sit alongside very popular and talented Miss Arlene Francis.
And now a gentleman who has just published a book called Tenderloin by one of my literary heroes, the late Samuel Hopkins Adams. And here he is, Bennett, Cerf.
Arlene, thanks for mentioning Sam Adams. He was one of the finest gentlemen that ever lived.
Yes, yes.
And here's our very smart panel moderator, just as slick and just as hard to pin down as Mr. McCoyan, John Charles Davis.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to What's My Line. We have some, I think, extraordinarily interesting occupations tonight. To me, most interesting because I think they promise to give the panel a very rough time. We'll also have a famous mystery guest before the panel a little bit later in the show, and we'll meet our first challenger after this. Now let's meet our first contestant. Will you come in and sign in, please? Louis? Morissette. Is that right? Mr. Morissette, where are you from?
From Montreal, Canada.
Montreal. Well,
Yes.
It's nice to have an American from the far north come and visit these Americans in the middle of the continent. Mr. Morissette, the panel.
How do you do?
Hello, Mr. Morissette. Will you join me over here, please? Tell me, have you any idea of how we score this here program?
Yes, I know.
All right. If you know how we keep score, let's let everybody at home and those who've been good enough to come on this cold night to be in the audience in the theater, let them know exactly what your line is. Panel. We will tell you that Mr. Morissette is salaried, and let's begin the general questioning with Arlene Francis.
Mr. Morissette, you have something of an aesthete look about you. Do you have anything to do with the arts?
Yes.
Are they, would it be the art of communication?
Yes.
Are you yourself some kind of a performer?
Yes, Miss Francis.
And do you have anything to do with television in Montreal?
I have.
Are you one of us?
What do you mean by that?
I mean, do you have a panel show in Montreal?
I have a panel show in Montreal.
Of course, we only admit to one panel show. Could it be the Canadian version of What's My Line? Is there a Canadian version of What's My Line?
There is, and that's exactly what I do.
Well, what are you doing there for? Well, it takes one to know one, I always say.
I bet Arlene saw this show last week.
It goes more than... Actually, Louis is in my job in
He's the
Chacun
chairman.
son métier. Is that
Yes,
Chacun
that's
son
right.
métier in Montreal, which is What's My Line.
And do you do it in French?
Yes.
Do you?
Will you just flip all the cards?
Well,
Will you just see if let me see how your muscle is.
Well, that's
No, I'll have to
There
pay
we
for
are.
it.
That's the way we do it.
Mr. Morissette, would you say in French the way, use one of John's elaborate speeches? Let's hear how it sounds in French.
Ah oui, bah alors ce que vous voulez savoir, c'est si, comme Monsieur Daly, quand on me pose une question, je réponds sans répondre.
Well, you're much easier to understand than Daly.
You can just tell, Louis, can't you, that Bennett's going away on a vacation? He expects me to forget all these shafts, you see, these slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. I'll cave his head in when he gets back here.
He's got a random air about him.
Oh, he has a random air. Yes, he does have a random air about him. Yes, indeed. That ought to shut you up, Bennett, for a long time.
No, I was just thinking of Mr. Morissette's song. You know, they have a song about Montreal. It goes, I'm a dreamer. Montreal.
Yes, we've heard about
Well,
that.
we can.
You need a vacation, Bennett.
We had Hello Broadway. Hello Montreal. It was Goodbye Broadway, Hello Montreal. I was very glad to be here. I think this was very kind of you to invite me here.
Oh, well, Louis,
And I wasn't at all surprised that you found this right away because I've seen you so often and I know how good you are at this game.
Oh, I
And
tell
I'm
you, the
expecting to go
French.
to see your play.
Oh, I hope you will.
I will.
Be my guest.
once more with feeling. I went
Please do, Mr.
again
Morissette.
yesterday. It was
You
wonderful.
did?
Yeah, it's a lot of
That's
fun.
Wonderful.
Wonderful.
Mr. Heflin, I've seen all your pictures, and I read Miss Kilgallen's column in a local paper because...
And someday you'll read a random book.
All I can say, Louis, I'm afraid you look like a moderator. Tough. Nice of you to
Thank you
join
very
us.
much.
Good to have you with us. Say good night to you. Considering that we went to the State Department, made a new treaty with Canada, and a few other things to get him here, I think that was very unkind of the panel. Nevertheless, let's see what we can do with our next challenger. Will you come in and sign in, please? Irene. Irene Cullen, is that right? Is it Miss or Mrs. Cullen?
Mrs.
Mrs. Cullen, and where are you from?
Newton, Kansas.
Newton, Kansas?
Yes.
Well, it's very nice to have you with us, Mrs. Cullen, the panel.
Have you
Panel, Mrs. Cullen, will you join me over here, please? Tell me, Mrs. Cullen, do you know how we keep score?
I think so.
All righty. Well, it's very simple, you know. If you can just get them to say no a few times, and I can flip 10 of those cards, you have won the game hands down. That out of the way, let's let everybody at home and those who are in the audience in the theater know exactly what your line is. All right, panel, I will tell you that Mrs. Cullinan is salaried. And this time, let's begin the general questioning with Dorothy Kilgallen.
Mrs. Cullinan, do you by any chance work for a non-profit making organization?
No.
No. That's 1 down and 9 to go, Mr. Heflin.
Do you deal in services?
Yes, sir.
Do these services include both men and women?
Yes.
Do these people, these men and women, come to your place of business?
Some of them do, I would think. I mean, if this is a very general question, Van, I would have to tell you that taking all of Mrs. Cullinan's activities together, we would have to agree that some of the men and women tend to come to her place of business, yes.
Yes.
Yes. Well, when they come, or you come to them, do you touch them?
No.
Small conference.
Sometimes.
You're doing half right all the way, Ben.
Would you say that Your services would be a benefit to them more mentally than physically?
You're
May
asking
I?
hard questions.
This is a broad area that we're covering, and I would say that in all counts, we would presume that if any benefit was to be derived, it would be more likely that the benefit would ultimately come on the mental level rather than the purely physical.
Do you need a special training for your type of services?
No.
That makes it 2 down and 8 to go, Miss Francis.
Do you in your work in any way advise people
Sometimes.
or inform them of something?
Sometimes.
Do you ever tell them anything about the future?
No.
3 down and 7 to go, Mr. Cerf.
I have a question.
Mrs. Cullinan, Kansas being a great agricultural and farming state, would your work be connected in any way with either agriculture or any kind of farm?
No.
4 down and 6 to go, Miss Kilgallen.
Mrs. Cullinan, do you work indoors more than you work out of doors?
No.
5 down and 5 to go, Mr. Heflin.
Do you wear a uniform in the conduct of your services?
Yes.
Does this uniform have a badge on it in any way?
Yes.
It's a nonprofit. I will pass to Miss Francis.
You've been brilliant.
There's an awful lot of whispering going on in the panel, which I wish the panel would cease and desist from here to and after.
Miss Cullinan, do you have anything whatsoever to do with transportation?
No.
All righty.
6 down and 4 to go, Mr. Cerf.
Mrs. Cullinan, even though you told us that this is a profit-making organization that you work for, could it be possible that you do some work that prevents crimes or depredations of one sort or another?
Yes.
Would that, could children possibly be guilty of the crime that is committed?
They could, although I think that we would agree it would be unlikely.
It would not be too likely, is that correct? Would the crime that you protect against be possibly stealing?
It could be.
Well, yeah, it could be.
Well, Mrs. Cullen, you're not going to sit there and tell me that you're a private detective, are you?
No.
No, not a problem. That's 7 down and 3 to go, Miss Kilgallen.
I'm so glad Bennett asked that. I was just about to say it. You wear a badge on a uniform, but you work for a profit-making organization. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you guard anything?
No.
Well, now, wait a minute.
Yes. Yes, I do.
You do your guarding, or whatever it is, out of doors more than indoors.
Yes.
Is it outside of a building rather than just at random? Excuse me, Bennett.
I'm sorry, but Mrs. Cullen is from Newton, Kansas.
There are no buildings
Well,
there?
that dropped that one all right, didn't it? Random's in Texas.
Oh, sorry.
It's coming.
Bennett's influence.
Yes,
Don't
it's
blame
catching.
Cullen, babe.
But you get a yes to your
I get a yes. She
question.
does this outside of a building.
Well, let us say not at random.
Oh, all right.
Random being in Texas.
Do you ever give people directions?
Yes.
Does your badge have a number on it?
No.
That makes it 8 down and 2 to go, Ben Heflin.
Thinking of rogues
I don't know what I...
You deal more with men and women than with children.
Yes.
It has something to do with direction, or does it?
I don't know. Try to figure out what kind of a building. Oh, pardon me.
Oh. You work outside of a building. Does this building have bars on it?
No.
That makes it 9 down and 1 to go, Miss Frances.
Would you be considered in any sense a watchman?
Bingo! You've got it.
Bennett!
That's wonderful, because you started so close to it, I didn't think you'd ever get it. But
Well, it was
wonderful.
Bennett's idea. I've got to give him the credit.
Mrs. Cullen is 64 years old, and she is a night watchman for the merchants of Newton, Kansas, and this is the first night off she's ever had. She carries a .38, wears a badge, and has had a long and wonderfully successful career.
Who's watching the store tonight, Mr.
This is, Bennett, you know what is happening? The merchants are taking turns tonight walking Mrs. Cullen's beat so that she could be here with us. Isn't that wonderful?
Sure is.
How long? Have you had a lot of fun doing it? Have you had any real big excitement or danger?
Yeah.
Have you?
Have you ever shot the .38?
No.
No, wouldn't do that.
Could you shoot it, Mrs. Cullen?
You're definitely right.
How many miscreants have you had to get a hold of and take to the police?
Oh, possibly in the neighborhood of 100.
About 100? Really? And what do they quit? When you catch them?
Yeah, well, and I'd load them up in my car and take them down, to the house with the bars around it.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's what. Well, we're pretty much, I'm a deputy sheriff on Sheriff Jack Hoy's staff out in Westchester, so I kind of feel we two belong together.
That's right.
And if you have any trouble out there in Newton, you call me and I'll come out and help you, because I don't think I'm much help to Sheriff Hoy in Westchester. I really don't.
Okay.
Well, it's been wonderful having you with us, and I think that it's a remarkable line that you have. And I must commend the panel highly, because I'd never, in all of the imagination of the world, have thought that you'd be a night watchman.
I go under the name of the merchant police.
The merchant police? You're all it, huh?
I'm it.
You're it.
That's what she is.
The whole police force.
24 years and a half of it.
Oh, wonderful. Lovely to have you with us. And will you say goodnight to the panel so they can all have a chance to see you personally? We'll meet tonight's mystery guest in just a moment, but first, here is a word from our sponsor. Now we come to the special feature of our program, the appearance of our mystery celebrity, for which I asked my friends on the panel to blindfold themselves. Blindfolds all in place, panel?
Yes, sir.
Good. Will you come in, mystery challenger, and sign in, please? Of our mystery challenger, we go to a different form of questioning. You ask one question at a time, in turn moving clockwise, and we'll begin it all with Bennett Cerf.
Well, I heard a lot of noise around me beside the cheering of the audience. I must settle something quickly. Is there more than one mystery guest tonight?
1 down and 9 to go,
Very
Miss
noisy.
Kilgallen.
Are you a star of television?
Do you sing?
2 down and 8 to go, Miss Frances.
Are you a Western star?
Mr. Cerf.
Is your program, do you have a program that's on television regularly once a week?
Well, here's where I
Miss
picked the wrong
Kilgallen.
one. I pass.
Mr. Heflin.
That's the wrong one.
Are you known as a man with a fast draw?
Miss Frances.
Oh, bad. That's no help. Isn't everybody in Western? Are you associated with a horse? I mean... I meant, a man and his horse, like they have it.
You mean Miss Arlene?
I mean like Trigger or
Does he
whatever their
sound
names
like-
are.
Miss Arlene, I'm sorry, but in all this uproar, I never did get the clarification of what you was asking. You mean, does he sound like one, look like one, wear like one? What did you have in mind?
No, does he always appear in a Western with a horse that has become nationally known among all the other horses?
You want to quit now and just take a no?
I wish I were home with my first contestant. No, I don't mean.
Well, let's just say there's a horse around usually when our guest is there. Mr. Cerf.
Does the word gun appear in the title of your series?
Mm-hmm. Bennett, you are smart.
All right, say it.
About 8
Bennett.
of them.
Bennett, actually, if you think you know, I think you ought to have a chance to say it.
Well, I thought it might be Jim Arness.
That's the boy. You are wrong. Let's pour down and fix the goals again.
Well, is your first name Jim?
Is the first name what?
Jim or James?
Jim or James? That makes it 5 down and 5 to go, man.
Could it be Hugh O'Brien?
Hugh O'Brien. No. That's 6 down and 4 to go, Miss Arlene.
I tell you, I have to guess it, I think, because if it's who I think it is, he is here to do a play with my husband as a vis-a-vis. Could it be Richard Boone?
It is. Bennett, we thought you had it all locked up when you said, have gun, will travel, you know?
Yeah, well, I was thinking of, I don't know one from the other.
I was sure he had it. He came out with
I thought you had it. That's what gave you the idea.
I get them all mixed up. I'm sorry, Mr. Boone.
Well, I must
My
say-
son John's the one who knows them. I don't.
With the number of westerns on the air, you're entitled to be mixed up.
I must say one
Stole a
thing.
picture from me. I should certainly be.
Which one was that, man?
That was The Raid.
It was the raid, and I didn't steal it at all.
No, I
You
would
did, I'm
imagine
afraid.
that with the two of you, there'd be no stealing. There'd be 2 splendid performances. You know, the one thing is most everybody knows Richard Boone, Dick Boone to me, as having been in Medic and been a great star in Medic before he became Have Gun, Will Travel. But I remember a day when with Franklin Heller, who is our director here tonight,
Oh,
Dick,
yes.
we did Front Page.
Yes, you were a
And-
wonderful Walter Burns. I must say, you were really the most
That is-
sardonic one I've ever
Were you
seen.
Lee Tracy? Were you the Lee
No,
Tracy?
this actually is a fine story because Dick, in those days, as he is now, was a very fine actor. And Franklin Heller had me dumped on him like somebody put a load of sand on the sidewalk. I'd never acted a day in my life, so he went out and got Dick Boone and some other men who were really fine actors, and they had to hold me up through all these performances because I couldn't.
not
But we
true.
had fun. We had a lot of fun, didn't we, Dick?
That was a good
Oh,
show.
those were
you
great
know.
days.
I'm not sure it was a good show. It was a lot of fun, however.
Oh, it was a lot of fun. Now, tell us about Have Gun, Will Travel. How has your life changed? I know that you came to stardom in television, which is a
Well,
kind of
things
new
have
world.
kind of leveled out now. For a while, my life changed in the amount of time I could spend sitting down when I first started doing this series, but that's kind of corrected itself now. And actually, I'm having a great deal of fun. I think the character of Paladin is an interesting one. He's a really fun man to kind of play. Really, I'm much more excited and interested at the moment in the play that we're opening at the Bijou Theater on February 7th with Martin Gable and Nancy Kelly, Norman Corwin's play, The Rivalry. And it's getting to be that exciting moment, and terrifying one, when the opening day is beginning to get terribly close. But I hope it's going to be as exciting to an audience as it has
Well, how
been to us.
different is it, Dick? Now you're back having to memorize whole passages and pages of text, whereas I understand when you're making film, this isn't so. Is it? You do find it hard
It's not
now?
so much the memorization, but I think anytime you tackle a character like Lincoln, who's not only a terribly complex man, but a legend of whom everybody has an exact opinion. Everybody who comes into the theater knows in his own mind what Lincoln should be like. So you have a double problem to contend with, and the one problem is enough for me at a time.
Mr. Boone, if Massey can do it, you can do it.
Well, thank you very much.
Well, I must say, Dick, it's wonderful to have you with us. And
John, very nice to see
raises
you.
some wonderful old memories in my mind, and we're also pleased about your success, and I'm sure the play, The Rivalry, is going to be real good.
Thank
Lots
you.
of success.
Thank you
Good to have
very
you with
much.
us. Well, panel, you've done very well tonight, I must say, and we'll all be back after this word from our alternate sponsor. Van Heflin, it's been very nice having you with us. And hope you come back again soon. Hope you had some fun. On that very happy note, this is John Daly saying good night, Miss Kilgallen.
Good night, Mr. Daly. Next week I'll phone it in. Good night, Van.
Good night, Dorothy, and good night, Arlene.
Good night. I think as an extra bit of interest, you might like to know that I used to play Betty to Van's Bob. We were Betty and Bob when we were kids. Good night, Bennett.
Bonsoir, Monsieur Daly.
Oh, bonsoir, monsieur. Qu'est-ce que vous dites? Yes, sir. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being with us on What's My Line?
Transportation for contestants on What's My Line is arranged by United Airlines. What's My Line is a CBS television network production in association with Mark Woodson and Bill Todman. Hal Sims speaking.